I call this meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. And thank you all for being here tonight. We appreciate your attendance at this board meeting. By attending meetings, you can learn about the accomplishments, needs, and concerns we face. The board meets regularly on the first Monday for Committee of the Whole meetings and the second and fourth Mondays of each month for a regular meeting. Open forum for the public is available at regular meetings. All meetings are open to the public except closed and exempt sessions, which are permitted by certain sections of Iowa Code. All board decisions, however, are made in public open session. The board is not a forum, it is a deliberative body. Accordingly, it receives communications, both oral and written, as a medium of information. It does not debate the contents of such communications, but considers them in making decisions and in the establishment of policies. During each regular board meeting, there is an opportunity to address the board by completing an open forum request and giving it to the board secretary prior to the meeting. Each person may have up to 2 minutes of time to speak. This is a time of listening by the school board, so the board does not make any comments during open forum. The issue will usually be referred to the administration for further study and follow-up if necessary. When the board president recognizes you, direct your comments to the entire board and limit your remarks to 2 minutes unless extra time has been approved by the board president prior to the meeting. The school board president will recognize one speaker at a time and will rule out of order other speakers who are not recognized. Only those speakers recognized by the chair will be allowed to speak. Comments by others are out of order. The school board president shall promptly rule out of order any discussion by any person, including school board members, that would violate the provisions of state or federal law, our open forum policy, or the statutory rights of privacy of an individual. To ensure that the board can conduct the important business of the district, the following guidelines apply to all members of the public who attend board meetings. The board asks that all members of the public treat open forum speakers, district employees, and the board with respect. Individuals are not permitted to engage in conduct that interferes with the ability of other individuals to watch the board meetings, interferes with the ability of other members of the public to offer comment to the board, or interferes with the ability of the board to conduct its business. Demonstrations during public comments, such as clapping or cheering in response to either public comments or statements made by board members, is discouraged. Those wishing to display placards, signs, and/or banners may not block any attendee's view of the proceedings. We'll start with reading of our board priorities. Director Beck, would you read those for us, please?
Sure. The Davenport School District establishes the following priorities to ensure the academic success of all students. Provide leadership and direction to improve the overall learning environment in our classrooms, schools, and district, including the health, safety, security, and happiness of students and staff. Direct and support actions, programs, and activities which reduce the impacts of poverty on our students, their families, and our community.
Thank you. And Director Potts, would you read our mission and vision statements, please?
Mission statement: to enhance each student's abilities by providing a quality education enriched by our diverse community. The vision statement: education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to ask the question, what if?
Thank you. Interim Superintendent Schneckloth, would you have any student board reports?
Yes, we do. I'll turn it over to our student board.
It's on. Okay. 26 Central students enrolled in German classes had the opportunity to travel to Chicago, where they visited German exhibits at the Museum of Science and shopped for local German goods. The Blue Illusion dance team earned several awards at the Iowa State Dance Team Championships, including 5 Division I rankings, first place in large school co-ed, and an academic excellence award based on their 3.79 GPA. Mrs. Vandermeid's class project has been named among the 250 finalists in the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow contest. a nationwide contest challenging students to apply science, technology, engineering, and math skills to find solutions to real-world problems. Central has been collecting holiday dinner boxes and cash donations that will be given to those in need during this holiday season. The freshman girls basketball team is off to a 5-0 start, and the boys basketball team has gotten off to a 4-0 start, including a win over the number 2 team ranked team in the state. This marks the team's best start since 2009, and we're now ranked 9th in the state. 2 science teachers from Central attended a workshop in Colorado and learned how to teach about water resources and allocation, and plan to bring a project like this back to Central using the Mississippi River. And last but not least, 56 new students were inducted into the National Honor Society.
Congratulations to the North Wrestling team for placing 5th overall at the recent wrestling meet. Student Council is hosting their holiday blood drive on Wednesday, December 12th from 8:30 to 1:30. The North Drama Club just finished their children's musical, A Year with Frog and Toad, which included the 1st and 2nd graders from Harrison Elementary visiting to come and see the show. Their next musical is Mary Poppins in the spring, and auditions will be held on Monday, December 17th in the Odd. North and their Joy Club is currently taking donations for the local homeless shelter, including hats, gloves, and coats, now until December 19th. Congratulations to Brant Carter, who was selected as a finalist and is the 2018 winner of the Aaron Campman Award for Defensive Player of the Year for football, and Carter Josend, who was one of 11 golfers in the state to be named to the Academic All-State golf team. Congratulations to the North Dance team, who competed at state and scored a Division I rating in both jazz and contemporary and placed 4th in Palms. And the North Environmental Club is working to acquire recycling bins from the city to put in large areas such as the gym and Odd.
You know, when you hear reports like that come from our schools, it's all an affirmation that the world is going to be okay because we have outstanding young people coming out of our schools and entering into our society. Hearing those things fills all of our buckets. I mean, you see the smiles on everybody's faces, and as it does everyone in our community. That's outstanding. President Johansson.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to board reports. Are there any? Director Beck.
I was able to attend the holiday concert at the Adler Theater, and it was fantastic to see all 3 choirs. We had lots of, we also had the North Chamber Orchestra, I believe. It was just incredible to see all of those students. They sounded great, and I was really impressed, and it was a great show.
Thank you. Any other reports? Director Hayes.
The board would like to offer our sincere condolence to Director Gosa and his family in the passing of his father, Thurman Lee Gosa, this past week.
Thank you for that, Director Hayes. Anything else? All right, we'll move on with communications. Director DeSalvo, would you please read our upcoming events?
December 11th, Tuesday at 9 a.m., the School Budget Review Committee SBRC hearing will take place at the Department of Education State Board Room, 2nd floor, Grimes State Office Building at 400 East 14th Street in Des Moines. December 24th and 25th, Monday and Tuesday, the district will be closed for the holiday. December 31st and January 1st, also Monday and Tuesday, closed for the holiday. January 7th, Monday at 5:30, there will be a committee of the whole meeting in the Jim Hester Boardroom at the Achievement Service Center, 1702 Main Street in Davenport. January 14th, Monday, 6 p.m., will be regular meeting in the Jim Hester Boardroom, Achievement Service Center, 1702 Main Street, Davenport.
Thank you. Next is open forum. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak should fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. The Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president will set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak during open forum. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community during open forum. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. We have at least 3. We have 3 board requests. First is from Kelly Means. I don't know if I pronounced that right. You'll be first, Kelly. Come on up, give us your name and address. And then after that will be Sherwin Robinson and Johnny Campbell. So go ahead, Kelly.
My name is Kelly Menace. Address is 1838 West Hay Street, Davenport.
Excuse me, can you all hear her back there? Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Can I go? Okay. My name is Kelly Menace. I am the SWS teacher at SMART. I am speaking today because I am concerned the SWS program will be cut as we make the difficult decisions in the coming months regarding our district's financial issues. There is just too many amazing things to share about SWS in the little time I have to speak, and I'm struggling to consolidate it in a meaningful and concise way. As a result, I invite any one of you to come visit my classroom to see the true impact the program has for our students at SMART, and feel free to email me with any questions you may have regarding the academic and behavior achievements of the SWS students. I have been the SWS teacher at SMART since 2013, and the impact it has had and continues to have on my past and current students have been life-changing and a game changer for the students, their peers, and even the teachers who see these students. It has been very humbling to me to witness my students grow and thrive. The students who are identified as at risk by their teachers, counselors, or administration have been placed in the SWS program for different reasons. But they all have one thing in common. They have a disconnect to their education, their school, and sometimes their peers. Some of them have been homeless, have experienced trauma, have mental health issues, have been bullied, don't have reliable transportation, or they have other health problems that make attendance and task completion difficult for them. Since my class size is small and I am their main teacher most of the day, and for some, most of their middle school career, I have become not only their teacher, but their mentor, coach, counselor, and advocate. They can count on me to be in their corner and fight for them and guide them through the difficult and unique challenges that each one of them face. I am able to build strong, trusting relationships, fully understand their needs, and have the opportunity to teach the whole child. With the small class setting, I am able to provide one-on-one attention, help build their confidence, teach them better coping skills, problem solve when they are feeling frustrated, unmotivated, or overwhelmed. Help them stay caught up in all their classes, and while doing all this, I'm still able to teach them. I fear that the SWS program, if the SWS program is cut, and the students who need some of the most intensive support in this district will end up being mainstreamed into the classes that will already be larger due to the teacher cuts that need to be made. These students will struggle. Some of them will slip through the cracks and fail coursework or become an attendance issue. And some will become a behavior concern because they don't yet have the proper skills to cope with their overwhelming challenges. This will not only cause them to become further at risk for dropping out by the time they get to high school, it will take away from the other students in each class as a result of their intensive needs or their peer issues and poor coping skills that will cause disruptions. Since this is my 6th year teaching the SWS program, I have a better understanding of the true impact this program has had on our students and what SWS is all about. I had witnessed students come into the SWS program as 6th or 7th graders with little confidence, self-esteem, or purpose. These students would shut down at the smallest assignment. They didn't want to come to school, or they cared more about peer or personal issues than their education. These students would get referral after referral for class disruptions or altercations with their peers. These students would have an ever-growing list of missing assignments because they were not in the classroom enough or did not receive the attention needed to effectively and efficiently complete their assignments.
Hey, Kelly. I hate to interrupt, but you're going to have to wrap it up, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
As these students spend more and more time in the classroom as a result of being part of the SWS program, little by little, there are less tiers, less removals, less conflicts, less missing assignments, and more time is spent as the things that matter, such as learning and taking ownership of their education. Please, as you make these difficult decisions in the weeks ahead, remember these children who depend on this program. I urge you to think heavily at the impact it will have on these students, our district, and our community if we allow these children to fail by removing the one thing that provides a safe, stable learning environment for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Next is Sherwin Robinson, Senior.
Good evening. As I said, my name is Sherwin Robinson, and I live at 2636 and a half Western Avenue. And as I know, we have just a couple minutes, so I'll try to be brief because I did come in with some information. And I'm here to speak on the concerns that are affecting the minorities in our Davenport community schools. I volunteer quite a bit at various schools, and my concern with what I see is a lot of what I was affected by when I was a product in the school system as well. And first of all, I know that I read on the news feed about a couple weeks ago that there was some data collected, and if I'm correct, there was about 982 people that took part in this on behalf of the school. And it says 96 personal interviews, teachers 39.5% took part, 27.6% were parents. And if at all after the meeting, if I can see where, if any of that information was collected, if any of the students, any of the parents were African American, or if any of the parents had students that were affected by any of the findings. But as I go along, one of the things that I read in this article that is, it was a study done, national study done by the National Education Association that provided information that when kids that are being educated see somebody that look like them, they are more affected by people that understand them, that can relate to them. I know because I was one of those people, and I see that the system is still the same way now as it was then. And one of the articles that I read, it showed that there was a teacher in Alabama that was a science teacher, and the kids were shocked to see an African American teacher. And so he asked them to draw a picture of what they thought a scientist looked like, and they all drew a picture of what Albert Einstein would look like. So he then asked them to express to them what they thought, who they thought he was, and they were shocked to see an African American scientist, to the point to where the students immediately took interest on being a scientist themselves, and had interest on wanting to do things such as being scientists, doctors, and so forth. And the participation, the study finds that participation was a little more effective. They were more interested in not only coming to class, taking part, but they were also impressed to go on to further education, to go to college. And in one of the studies, they showed that in Boston, 1 in every 22 African American students, out of 22 students, every 22 students, they see one black teacher. So it disturbs me that when I walk into the Davenport Community Schools, that number has to be far greater, and then concluding here, as I said, I have a lot more to say, but I just want to give a general idea, a synopsis of what I'm talking about. When I go into the Davenport schools, I see that our black personnel is namely security personnel or crisis management. So if I'm a student, by the time I see these people, there's a confrontation and consequences that aren't so good, which will lead to some of the expulsions or out of class time, and then maybe taking time away from learning in the interest of furthering your education. I also seen that if an African American student had an African American teacher by 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, the chances of going to college are far greater, at least the interest. For a female, it's 19%, and for an African American male, 29%. And these findings, you can go online for the National Education Association to get these. These were studies done by 2017. So those are concerns that I want to bring forth to the Davenport schools. I don't know if anything or what you're looking into any of this, but if we want to make progress, I think it would be to the benefit to see people that are in administrative positions, principals, counselors, teachers, and if we don't do it, I think the numbers will go as they are now, expulsions, jail, into the streets. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sherwin. And last, we have Johnny Campbell.
Yes, sir. How you doing? Well, my name is Johnny Campbell, and I'm 501 West 3rd Street, apartment 706. I work sometimes with Gary Thorpe with Beyond the Baseline, speaking to the students with the school systems. And I also a founder of my own nonprofit called Good Quest One. And well, I'm here today to want to ask or make a, not necessarily a complaint, but just I want to try to change the name of the Central High School. Instead of Blue Devils, make it something else. I look at it as we all know the origin of a devil. You know, it's derived from evilness, and there's no good in that. And so I look at it like, why should there be a name as devil? You know, I say let's just change it to something else and have the students at Central High School pick whatever names and mascot they want to, you know, whatever they want it to be. And I just look at it like that. You know. I'm not trying to say bring religion in the school or whatnot, but I mean, religion is on our dollar, you know, it says in God we trust, you know, and whatnot. So I just look at it as that, you know. And, but I just would like to see a change in the school mascot name. You know, I don't think that it should be a devil, you know, at all, you know, it's from evilness, you know, and we all know what evil does. We all know what good and bad is. And the devil represents bad. And I just would like to say that. And I have another issue, but I would like to state that in my next, well, the next time, because it's going to probably take too much time. But I just want to get that out there first. So, but that's all, everybody.
Thank you, Johnny. And thank you, Kelly and Sherwin. It really is important when you come and speak to the board, and all of you had really interesting, great ideas that I'm sure the board and the administration will be thinking about. So thank you again for coming tonight. We'll move on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move that the board accept the consent agenda as written.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I didn't catch who it was. Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion? Oh, and I apologize. Mary, were you able to get Director Mayfield? Okay, so, and I apologize for not mentioning it to everybody out there, but our Director Mayfield was not able to attend tonight's meeting. So we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Gosa?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of bills?
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board approve the following resolution as recommended by administration for adoption of the bills from the bill listing periods of November 22nd, 2018 through December 5th, 2018. Resolved, all claims presented to the board having been duly certified as correct by the secretary, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn on the treasury for the several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the periods of November 22nd, 2018 through December 5th, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, call for the vote. Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Gosa?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. carries. Thank you. Superintendent report.
There's none at this time.
Thank you. Move on to other items requiring action. And we have a few public hearings tonight. First is 8.01. May I have a motion on the approval of plans and specifications for the Mid-City Urban Farm Structure Project?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move that the board approve the plans and specification for the Mid-City Urban Farm Structure Project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We will now hold a public hearing on the approval of plans and specifications for the Mid-City Urban Farm Structure Project as published in the Quad City Times on Saturday, December 1st, 2018. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please step forward to the microphone. State your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Director Beck.
Just to clarify, we are voting on the plans, but no district funds are being used. Is that correct?
I couldn't hear the question.
Oh, here comes Mr. Maloney. We're voting on the plans only. It's a grant-funded project, so no district funds are being used. Is that correct?
This project is entirely grant-funded. There is currently a total of about $160,000 has been raised. This will build the shell only, and interior improvements will come later.
So we have to vote on it just because it's a physical structure that's part of the school. Is that correct?
Because it's a public improvement.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion on the approval of plans and specifications for Williams Intermediate new parking addition on the southwest side project?
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board approve administration's recommendation of the plans and specifications for Williams Intermediate and new parking addition on the southwest side project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We will now hold a public hearing on the approval of plans and specifications for the Williams Intermediate Parking Addition project as published in the Quad City Times on Saturday, December 1st, 2018. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please step forward to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Director DeSalvo.
Just for clarification, this money is being funded by the physical plant equipment levy?
Yes, this is PEPAL funded.
Thank you.
Any additional discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion on the approval of plans and specifications for the Adams and Williams restroom remodel project?
Mr. President,
Director Beck.
I move that the board approve the plans and specifications for the Adams and Williams restroom remodel project.
Thank you. Is there a second? We will now hold a public hearing on the approval of plans and specifications for the Adams and Williams restroom remodel project as published in the Quad City Times on Saturday, December 1st, 2018. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please step forward to the microphone. State your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Beck?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Gosa?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion on the approval of plans and specifications for North High and Smart partial roof project?
Mr. President,
Director Beck?
I move that the board approve the plans and specifications for the North High and Smart partial roof project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We will now hold a public hearing on the approval of plans and specifications for the North High and Smart partial roof project as published in the Quad City Times on Saturday, December 1st, 2018. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Director Hayes.
Mr. Maloney, my question was for the ladders, of that $850,000, how much is that? And was there any reason that that wasn't a separate project?
For the roof ladders?
Yes.
Because the roofing contractor typically is the contractor that would provide roof ladders, where they were missing from other schools, we added them to the next available roof project.
Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Beck?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Gosa?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion on the approval of plans and specifications for the Central Masonry Project?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the plans and specifications for the Central Masonry Project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We will now hold a public hearing on the approval of plans and specifications for the Central Masonry Project as published in the Quad City Times on Saturday, December 1st, 2018. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please step forward to the microphone. State your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Director Hayes.
Mr. Maloney, I know you're probably sick of hearing this, but with this August 30th due date, will the restrooms also be included in that by that time?
The restroom renovation at Central,
Central, yes.
that will be a separate public hearing that will be probably in January.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of contract renewal with SU Insurance?
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the contract renewal with SU Insurance in the amount of $304,162 for equipment breakdown insurance.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Beck.
I'm trying to figure out if we are saving more money than we are paying for the insurance policy. It's not clear from the document that we're given.
At this time, we're close to that. What the main impact right now, and for the last couple of years has been, is that because this is an insurance policy, we are allowed under Iowa code to pay for the premium out of the management fund, and that's reducing expenses in our general fund that we use to pay for equipment maintenance contracts. And what I'm looking at doing, hopefully yet this year and into next year, is to expand upon our use of that. One option that we have that we haven't taken advantage of yet is the ability to be reimbursed through the insurance policy for some of our computer technician time in our LIS department for the maintenance and repair work that they do on a lot of our computers and Chromebooks and that type of thing. So we have a potential to save even more.
Okay, and this policy costs currently $304,162. Does that go up each year?
I think it is a slight increase from last year, but I don't have that information with me. It hasn't been a significant change. And the premium, again, is paid out of the management fund.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Claudia, I was wondering, how urgent is it that we pass this?
I'm actually a couple months late in getting it to you because I was trying to get a better understanding of it before I brought it to you. We should have renewed this a couple months ago, so the vendor would be very interested in us getting that passed, but if it's not something that you feel you're ready to do, we could wait.
Well, my thinking is it'd be nice to have the answers that Director Beck was asking. If we knew what we paid last year, and if we knew the kind of the effect, I look at it like any other insurance, is it worth it? Sometimes you just gotta have it. This feels like it's not a gotta have, hopefully it's helping us manage some of those dollars, and then it's also directing them out of a different fund. But if you could tell us, for instance, that we spent that last year we spent $302,000, and it's only gone up a part of 1% or whatever. And I don't know if the vendor working with us right now, or we just have no insurance?
They have been working with us and are waiting to get this contract renewed so that we can get payment set up for them.
Oh, so you haven't paid them for a couple of months then?
Correct.
But they're offering the service, assuming that they'll get paid?
Yes.
Okay, I guess I'll leave it at that. Is there any other discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. Director DeSalvo.
No.
On this vote, if possible, could you explain your reasoning too? Because this may be an interesting vote. I'm not requiring it, but it might be important.
I'm not prepared to approve this until, if we had had a little more information, I think I would feel more comfortable, but it's an awful lot of money, but I appreciate paying it out of a management fund versus every time one of these things break down, paying it out of the general fund. So I think it's something we need to approve, but I would feel more comfortable saying yes if I had more information.
Thank you. Director Hayes.
I am going to vote yes on it since we are utilizing the services already and they're just waiting for us.
Director Gosa.
I'm going to vote yes because I want to.
Okay, thank you. Director Beck.
I'm going to vote yes because we're currently using this, and it is being paid out of the management fund. I appreciate saving money from the general fund, but I would like to revisit this before it comes up for renewal next year so that we can, with some numbers, so that we can see if we're actually making the best decision.
I'm not sure, Claudia, you're trying to get in, but I'm not sure how to let you in right during the vote. What are you trying to tell us?
I was able to look up real quickly what we paid last year, and actually the premium for this year is less. Last year was $315,915. This year's premium is $304,162.
Okay, thank you. Director Potts.
Yes.
And I'm going to vote no. And the reason is that as we continue to be under the microscope, one of the things that we were found was that there were times where we entered into contracts without board approval. And so technically that's kind of where we are. This is in a separate issue, but wherever possible. I mean, there are some exclusions that allow for that, but I want to be just so careful about this and try to encourage all of us to try to make sure that we get this stuff. And I understand, Claudia, I mean, just timing and stuff, but that's one of the things that the state doesn't like is timing issues. So I'm going to vote no, but the motion carries, and so that contract has been renewed. I have a motion regarding approval of contract with IMEG Architects.
Mr. President,
Director Potts.
I move the board approve the contract with IMEG Architects in the amount of $57,225 for the central LED lighting and controls project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Beck. I already called on you. It's all right.
First question is, the letter we got has an amount $54,500. Unless I'm reading it wrong. And the motion was for a different amount, 57,000.
There are reimbursables that are not in part of the engineer's fee that are mileage and printing of plans and specifications and so forth. And so there's an estimate included in the cover sheet there of $2,725 for reimbursables.
Okay. And my second question is, am I understanding this properly, that this is just for the plans themselves?
This is the plans and specifications only, yes. The project budget, including soft costs, is $500,000.
Is it typical for plans to be 10% or more of the construction project?
Yes, our architect and engineer fees typically range from 8 to 12%, and the lower the project cost, the higher the percentage of the project ratio to fees would typically. So for something that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 30 million, we would see fees of 8%, and something that's a $500,000, we might see 11, 12%.
So it's not just replacing light bulbs?
No, there are controls, occupancy sensors, other things besides, and it's not just bulbs, it's replacing fixtures.
Okay, thank you.
Director DeSalvo.
So the list of items that will be in this project are the theater space, Kemper Hall, new and old gym space, auto shop building section, and performing arts center. My question is, we just put a whole lot of money into those facilities. Why did we not do this?
Those are the pieces that are excluded.
Oh, those are excluded, so those
Yes.
are not part of it. Okay, well, I'm sorry, there's a not there, you're right. Whew, thank you.
Any other discussion? Director Gosa.
I wasn't even going to ask this, but when Director Beck asked the question, we have to pay them mileage to come out and do this? Is that what you said?
Yes, printing of plans and things like that, mileage, certain other reimbursable costs, and that's true of all of our architects and engineers and many other consultants as well.
So they charge us to come out to our property and look at it and then to go get the plans and everything?
That is the industry standard.
I am in the wrong line of work. It's crazy.
Any other discussion? Director DeSalvo.
This one will be better. Do we have any idea estimated savings yet, or is that what they will come in and do?
That will be calculated as part of this work. This lighting retrofit was among the energy efficiency measures that was recommended by the retro commissioning study that was done at each of the high schools and several other buildings as well.
So we don't have that just yet.
So there will be a calculation that will be submitted to Mid-American and their consultant clear results, and that will be the basis upon which our rebate on our energy saving incentives is calculated.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? I do have something, excuse me just a minute here. Oh, Director Beck.
I guess I'm just having a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that this is going to cost so much. For example, I'm not sure what page number it is. One of the things that they are going to do is design architectural ceiling systems where they take out old ceiling and they put in new ceiling for recessed lighting. I mean,
There are a few locations where there will be some architectural change in addition to the fixtures themselves. Not all the fixtures are 2x4 lay-in grid tile ceilings.
so, I mean, I guess I just want to make sure that all these changes are necessary. They're not just cosmetic, is what I'm trying to get at. That we're spending
yes
the
is
money
the-
wisely. Okay.
Anything else? Mr. Maloney, the thing that was bothering me, and it was, I recalled some of it after Director Gosa was saying that he's in the wrong profession. And you said that's the industry standard. And I think sometimes that we fall into the trap of that's the industry standard because that's the industry standard. And I think the industry standard is set by the industry, not by us. And so it's sometimes frustrating to look at these and to go, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to quibble on mileage. But I think that, if I recall right, in one of the conversations, I think Mid-American, with the efforts that they provide, and there are two different organizations that you work with that work with Mid-American. And one of them actually does the lighting audit, is that right?
Yes, that's clear result.
Clear results. And I think the clear results portion, that's at no cost, right?
That, well, yes, that's included in your utility bill.
Right. It's included in the utility bill. So for part of this, because part of this appears to be a lighting recommendation, right? And,
Yes.
And so I'm thinking, does IMEG go ahead and call Clear Results, get Clear Results to come in and do it at no cost, and then bill us for the work? I just,
Oh, no. That doesn't work that way at all. Clear Results does the validation work and the calculation of the energy rebate and so forth as a part of Mid-American's program, but Clear Result does not do the design work or prepare the contract documents or supervise the contract or anything like that. I should also mention that on many of the architect and engineer fee proposals that you see, it has been back and forth between the firm and the staff, because we often say, we think that's too much, go get a sharper pencil, and we more often than not do a little negotiation there, and we'll ask them to come in sometimes and explain why the cost is this high. We think it ought to be lower, and percent of the project cost and so forth.
I'm trying to recall the policy regarding hiring of architects, because architects is different than most other things that we deal with, right?
Yes.
And so is IMEG the only architect that decided to bid on this?
It's a professional service, and we selected IMEG. This is engineers and not architects, actually, for a number of reasons. We use several electrical engineering firms, and the board policy requires an RFP for projects total cost of over $3 million. Under the $3 million threshold, the staff will negotiate with one of the firms with whom we have experience and is local.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Director Beck.
Piggybacking off of what President Johansson just said, is there, so industry standard that usually applies to commercial things, right? Would it not be appropriate to say we're a nonprofit entity, we don't pay mileage or something like that?
Yes, we could do that, and they would simply add that into the fee in some other way. They would take an estimate of what they thought their reimbursables would be and just add it on to the fee.
Okay.
Director Gosa.
One of the other questions, and I've been looking all through this paperwork and I haven't seen it, is there something in there that protects us, that they do the drawings for everything, because everything looks great on a flat piece of paper, but then when they're out in the field doing it, if conduit or whatever gets in the way of it, and then there has to be a change to the plans, do we take that hit or do they? Because I see that's like an additional service they offer if they need to redo things. So once they do it, that's it, even if it is their fault because it was done to the drawing. Because I mean, we got hit with this hard at Central, and I want to make sure that, because that architect didn't do a very good job at that stuff, and then kept trying to come back at us for change orders when that should be on the architect instead of, because it wasn't our, that's what we're paying them to do.
Well, there's what's called the standard of care in the industry, that the engineering firm is required to meet the professional standard of care. They have errors and omissions insurance should there be a major error or omission. Of course, that usually becomes a lawsuit. The nature of this work is such that we really don't expect a lot of found conditions or some of the unexpected things that we're incurred with the Central Addition project.
Okay. My other question is, you were talking about ceilings. Are you talking about obviously drop ceilings and then some of them are hard ceilings?
There are hard ceilings, drop ceilings, there are old-fashioned sconce lightings, there's
Right.
soffit lighting, there's a wide variety of lighting in, this is the largest school in the district in terms of square feet, and it's the most complicated in terms of the age of things. I mean, it
Right, well,
goes
that's
back
what
to
I'm getting at with,
1905.
they might, well, we tore into this and now we ran into this and we're gonna have to do this to beef this up, or that's kind of what I was going along with. That was my questions.
Director Hayes.
Now, Mr. Maloney, you said we made the selection of this company. Is there any reason that we are compensating them in a lump sum versus itemized? That we can see individually what things cost?
We have some robust debate from time to time about whether design fees should be lump sum or should be time and materials. And in some cases, we think lump sum best protects the district interest. In some cases, we think time and materials is better. It depends on the nature, size of the project and the complexity of things as we understand them. Typically, we ask for a lump sum for design fees.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other discussion? One of the questions I had, and I apologize I didn't see it, it's probably in here. That lump sum, when are we going to pay it?
It is paid out over the course of the contract, proportional to the amount of work that's done.
So when we had that on the central project, we ended up paying out 1.7 million before, and that was before your time, but we ended up paying it out over time, over that 1 year. And then we found out that they were way off in the original assumption of cost. And you changed the contract language, and I don't know all what you changed it to, but I just don't want to ever get into that position again. And it sounds like with this, if we go the however long it takes them to do this work and we pay for it, and then they say, whoops, we made a $500,000 error, but we've already paid them, then we're just out of luck. How do we safeguard against that?
Well, part of our safeguard against that is the professional judgment of the staff. We have to be on guard that we don't allow that to happen. The problem with Central was that about more than 60% of the total fee is incurred during the design and preparation of construction documents, and only 25-30% of the fee is incurred during the actual construction, because the architect's work is front-ended in doing the design and preparation of contract documents. So when in a case like that, on that particular case on bid day, it was about $5 million over budget. The architect and your staff should have detected that sooner and should have prevented that from not coming to your attention until the last minute.
Yeah, as I recall it, it didn't come to our attention until you started working here.
The bid day, I think, was 3 days before I started work
Yeah,
here.
it was something like
One of my
that.
first problems.
All right, well, thank you for that. Sorry to recall all of that. Is there any other discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
No.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Gosa,
No.
Director Beck,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion for approval of at-risk/dropout prevention program?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the at-risk dropout prevention program plan for the 2019-20 school year as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Beck.
Could I ask Interim Superintendent Schneckloth to give us a summary of this? How this
Sure.
is different from what we were talking about before?
Sure. So the how this budget is approved has changed. This budget used to be uploaded to the state. Somebody at the state would review this budget and give us feedback. We needed board minutes to approve in the past. And then from there, we would move forward with our modified allowable growth. The changes that they've made this year, the approval comes at the school board level. So when you guys vote this, you are approving or not approving this budget. And then from there, it goes forward to the SBRC. So that's some of the differences that are how the budget is approved. With that, giving the local control back to the school boards, they've also opened up what this money can be spent for. In the past, we had troubles even getting a counselor to be in there, which is a very realistic use of dropout prevention, and then they allowed that. So they've been opening this up. This year, they allowed items like the use of administrators, the use of social workers, the use of security personnel inside of this non-categorical fund. So that caused us to really dig in and look at what could we, how could we utilize that in our current situation. And so in a previous budget, we had put some administrative costs in there, and we got feedback that, and we've changed that. So this board has made a commitment that we are moving forward with security in our buildings, and we approved a one-time ask to allow us to start our security program with the thought that we would continue that and find continuing funding. Well, now the state has said it's allowable in there. So one of the key changes that you'll see in your budget today is that we at one point had administrators in there to continue the tasks that we want to accomplish inside of here, but now we've moved our security personnel inside of there, which is now an allowable expense.
Any other discussion? Director Beck.
I have two questions. So the first one is, for example, our dropout support specialist or dropout prevention specialist. They provide professional development to school staff and parents. I understand that. When it says that they work to ensure that students receive services above and beyond what schools are able to offer, and those services are provided on an individualized basis, what exactly types of services would that be? Can you give some examples?
So when a school has a student that's trying to return to school or is in danger of dropping out of school, and in the amount of energy that it would take to contact this student, set up a meeting, evaluate class lists, what is necessary to graduate, what are you going to have to, what's your coursework look like, that goes above and beyond the scope of what a school counselor would be able to do. So that's where these people step in, and they build basically mini programs for each one of our students that are in danger of dropping out or are at risk. some of the things that you might have recognized these individuals working on are our drop back in and finish it campaigns, our dropout prevention task force. We're meeting with the community, generating ideas, taking what's available in the community, our community resource experts, aligning those students with those community resource experts. So those are the kinds of things that our dropout specialists work with. Also, they are the point of contact for our counselors. So they are the point of contact for our suicide prevention, anything to do with transgender related issues, all of those things that are really, when nobody has an answer to, those specialists come in and help facilitate those conversations. Rob, do you have anything that you'd add to that? No?
I don't.
So my second question then is, how are we going to know that these things are working, or do we know that these things are working? For example, credit recovery is done through online work. How do we know that those students actually have the skills that we say they have when they graduate? And I guess some of this is my personal opinion that online courses are not always as rigorous as face-to-face courses. So how do we know that those students are still going to graduate with the skills that we want them to have? What data are we collecting that these programs are working in preventing dropouts?
So that's an excellent question. All of these programs require that we collect data on them. Now the credit recovery program, the dropout program, we utilize software. In the past it was Apex. Right now we're switching to Edgenuity, because Edgenuity is going to allow us a more robust program, and we'll be able to utilize that across all of our functions of our school. So when you talk about how do we know that those students, how do we know it's working with them? Those dropout specialists essentially case manage those students, and kind of a mini continuum of what that looks like. There's at-risk services, dropout prevention services inside of our building that our social workers and our counselors work on. When it gets to one of our dropout prevention specialists, they work with those students, and then we have another program that we can offer to our students, graduation. Thank you, Rob. Graduation Alliance, which is our last line of defense. And before any one of our students can drop out of school, it must be approved by the superintendent. And that was something that Dr. Tate put in place as a part of our dropout prevention protocols. So there's a long list of things that students have to do before they can drop out.
Director DeSalvo.
I would just like to comment on the last, this program. We heard tonight from a teacher with concern about SWS school within a school. And so that program will remain, and it's part of this plan.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? I got a couple of questions. So the opening couple of paragraphs, who wrote those?
Heather Harland did. Heather Harland.
Okay. It sounds almost like it was from the state. That's why I was curious if it's the way this is written and the newness of it is striking to me. And then the local match, 25%, and I'm wondering where and when does that come from? Oh, there you are. I'm sorry.
So the local match is a conglomerate of things. It's our principals. It's our principals, I'm sure. It's part of our counselor time, part of our counselor time, part of our principals, a lot of anything that's like the other side of our JCLs. It's a lot of at-risk work that's not included in your dropout prevention dollars. And it's a requirement of the state. They want to see a full program. 75% of it is cash that they give us, and the rest we need to come up with.
And then, I think along the lines of some of the earlier questions about verification that we're getting all this done and that we're doing it, the 25%, you must just be making assumptions then on how many dollars based on percentages of all these different people, right, to come up with that number.
Well, we start by looking at the number we need to meet. And then we start to look at the resources in those buildings. And this has been a long time coming. I've been working with this budget for about 10 years now. And when I took it over, the principal time and counselor time were definitely on the radar. With the change in allowing administrators to be part of this program, we're allowed to bring that in instead of having the security guards as being part of our match, because that's what we had done in the past. Social workers, now those are actually part of the money that we're going to get, the weighted dollars. So now we can bring those associates at the high school level. I mean, they're really working with that, with all of those at-risk kids on a daily basis. As far as evaluation and program piece, we have a department that does a very good job of making sure that all of that stuff comes together. And I think this is really a great program in evaluating that, yes.
Is it your thinking and the administration's that this will be ongoing every year?
I would think so. It's been such a long-standing program. Obviously, we're evolving with the change in state language, but I think it's ongoing. And state aid has been there. Like I said, I've been doing this for 10 years, and the amount of dollars have been pretty stagnant over that time.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Director Beck.
Sorry, one more question. Since we know that reading in grade 3 is a good indicator of success later on, do we include programs targeted at getting kids 3rd grade and below at grade level before they move on to 4th grade in this?
It's my understanding that part of that is some of our reading interventionists, and Bill can speak to the programming, yes.
We've got about $1.5 million in that very area. There's probably, it averages about 30 students at every elementary school who are in a Tier 3 plan where they're monitored on a regular basis. They progress monitor them. So that's probably the one thing we feel that like we have the most data on, and we could say whether it was being successful or not with a group of kids.
Any other discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Gosa?
Yes.
Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. We have a discussion item, special education data update, interim Superintendent Schneckloth.
So what we're going to present today is a format that we would like to see move forward at every month at the committee of the whole that would allow the school board to discuss, and it would allow the school board to ask questions. What you're going to see is a very similar format to what was presented at the November 14th State Board of Education meeting. And so I have asked Rob Scott and Susan Downs to speak at each one. We have some documents that we'd like to share with you for your feedback, and also a progress update inside of the documents that we have. So basically what we're going to do today is we're going to share with you progress between November 1st and now, and also see if this format works for you guys and it helps you understand, gives you the information you need to be able to ask questions. So with that being said, Susan.
Oops, okay, it's working. All right, so I'm going to try to work this mouse up here. So the first document is the format. This is what Amy Williamson from the Department of Ed, how she shared our data with the State Board of Ed. When she looked through, when she shared our progress on the citations, right? And we had talked about last time when I was here that as we updated the data for you, we would use this format or something similar. So when she went through this, are you guys, am I doing this right? Okay. So when she went through this, she actually took the individual citations and broke them down into whether they're in progress, the percent that we've accomplished. But then at the bottom, and I'm going to take you to this because when working with Sandy Schmitz from the state, our implementation advisor, and Kim Hoffman, who's the director of special ed from AEA, we looked at this. Then we worked with interim superintendent Schneckloff and our 2 associate superintendents. And the most meaningful, there we are. The most meaningful part is the citations, the individual citations that impact individual students fall under Appendix A and Appendix B. That's where all of the student names were listed. It was redacted, the copy that you this And all of those other individual citations listed above all condense into these 2 areas. And so we determined that this piece of the report was probably the most meaningful and would get to the meat of what we're doing. So that first one was just for your information so that you could see how the Department of Ed presented it to the State Board of Ed. Now I'm going to get us out of here. Oh, sorry. Do we have questions?
We wanted this to be the basis of the document, so that way when we show you, what we show you next, you can be able to say, well, this is missing or that's not missing.
Yep.
So we wanted to show you essentially what the state's probably going to share with you as we move forward at our state school board.
Right.
So that's the basis of showing you this again. We know you already have it.
All right. So we talked about at least monthly, and I'm going to make this bigger here. You guys should have this, that we would come with an update on those individual citations. So if you look, we started with a very similar format. So we have the citation, Appendix A. Next to it are the different citations that fall under Appendix A. So the students, the 47 students in Appendix A, fell under these 3 citations. The placement decisions, which had to do with the predetermination and lack of individualization. The functional behavior, the inadequacies of the functional behavioral assessments and behavior intervention plans, and then initial evaluations. And then we are to correct all 47 of those, obviously. So as of November 1st, which was the data that was shared at the state board meeting, we had completed 5 of those 47, putting us at 10%. As of November 30th, we have completed 18 out of those 47, putting us at 39%, with 10 more in process, meaning they should be completed hopefully within, well, if not before Christmas, shortly thereafter, so that we can pick up the others. And this data was verified by AEA 9. So these 2, Appendix A and Appendix B data, we get from AEA 9. Kim Hoffman provides them. So under Appendix B, the individual students that were cited under there were cited for a variety of citations. One was the placement decisions again, the predetermination, and the lack of individualization. That was the bulk of them. Prior written notices, and that they were inadequate or also lack that individualization. So that kind of went along with the other citation. Evaluation procedures, and then in this case it had to do again with the inadequacies of our functional behavioral assessments and behavior intervention plans and needing to review those. Suspensions and removals along with manifestation determination, and that had to do with our disproportionality. A piece of that had to do with disproportionality. And then the final one under Appendix B was evaluation procedures in terms of disproportionality again, because we are identifying African American students at a higher rate than we probably should be, right? We're disproportionate in that area. So we have to reevaluate those students to make sure that they should have been entitled. So on November 1st, we were at 56%. So there are 2,866 citations that we need to fix, and 1,603 had been completed by November 1st. By November 30th, we were at 61%, meaning that we were now at the 1,751 of the citations completed, with 262 more in process, meaning that those should be accomplished hopefully within the next few weeks or shortly after break, right? And this again is data verified by AEA 9. Then the next area that the state provided information on, and this was the one that was, I think, somewhat alarming, right? That, so when students are identified that they require compensatory ed, then it is our job as a district to ensure that that starts as soon as possible afterwards. And we talked about this 2 weeks ago when we approved the contract, when you guys approved the contract with AEA. We were having trouble recruiting teachers to provide that compensatory ed outside of school hours, which is when we need to do it. We, shortly after interim superintendent Schneckloff went into place, he set it up that we would meet with HR and the AEA, and we came up with the system where AEA will now do the hiring. They have a little bit faster process for once students or people apply. So our going through our hiring process with our background checks and things like that takes longer. It prolongs it. And then they were able to pay at a much higher rate. They'll bill us back that money, but that allows us to recruit people. So we met with them, before I go into that. So on November 1st, out of the 1,603 citations or students, 155 of them were determined that they required or were eligible for compensatory ed because we had made mistakes and you could see it in their progress. And that was 9.7% of the IEPs that had been held. As of this is actually a little more recent. This is as of last week, not November 30th. Our most updated was that we now have 158 students who are owed compensatory ed out of 1,751. Of those students, if you go to the next piece, 57 of them, right, are currently, there went my glasses, are currently receiving the compensatory ed. We scheduled it, we had teachers for them, and we got it scheduled. Of that 158, 56 of those students, as of Friday, actually did not have a teacher assigned to them. That will change because we met with AEA on Friday because they also approved the contract just like you did. And we now have 55 teachers who've applied, which is amazing because we couldn't get them before. 55 teachers who have applied that we will be assigning students over the next week, and so this should be resolved fairly quickly. We have 37 students whose parents either declined, said they were not interested in compensatory ed, and or the students are refusing to show for compensatory ed. For whatever reason, and we continue to try to reach out to them, but they're just not interested in staying after school or coming early. We have 8 students that we have completed all of their compensatory ed. So that just goes over that, and we'll show you some more data on that, or show you another way with the data. So, whoops. Yes, let me pull this. I don't know what happened there. Okay, yes.
Can you please explain the 1,603 is the total, and then I understand how you found 3 more students who might be owed compensatory ed, but how did the
Absolutely, absolutely. So when how come my mouse isn't working? There it is. There we go. So at the beginning of November, the state under Appendix B, do you see where we had 1,603 students that we had completed the IEPs on? Well, now we have 1,751 that we've completed, so now we have to take it out of that total. Does that make sense? Okay, good. You bet. Any other questions on this one? All right. Yes.
You said you've got 1,751 IEP reviews completed, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so of those, how many students were found not to be entitled?
That I don't know. You mean from the disproportionality piece of it for the reevals?
Assessing them to determine if they were entitled. So I was just wondering if you knew of those 1,751, how many were not entitled?
I don't
You
know,
don't
but
know?
I can get
Okay.
that information from AEA. AEA would have that, so I will ask them. Because there have been some that have been dismissed. So, yeah. Any other on that? And then the only other two citations that we've included were the restraint and confinement, which we resolved last summer, and the finance one, which was also resolved last summer. So how does this format look to you? Does this seem like something that would be worth reviewing? And you guys can decide how often, if it's every 2 weeks, if it's once a month, whatever, whatever you would like. AEA said that they have to get us from Appendix A and Appendix B. But they will do whatever. They've been tremendous to work with. Here we go. All right. So,
Hang on, Director Hayes has something here.
Just to answer your question, I like this format that you have it, and I like to see it every 2 weeks, so we're on top
All right.
of what you're doing.
awesome.
Thanks.
We can do that. Thank you. So, as part of, we talked about this last time, and so this is just for information purposes. We came up with a protocol. We didn't have that system in place, or a very efficient system in place for recruiting our comp ed teachers and then collecting that attendance data. So this, there we go. Whoops, that's not the one. This is, wait, before we get to that, sorry, I forgot. So this is that compensatory ed data that we talked about, but it's now in this spreadsheet so that you see a pie graph. So again, if you look at it, the green is the completed, that's the 8 students. The yellow are the students that are currently in progress. They have a teacher, they're getting their comp ed. The red are the ones that yet need to have a teacher assigned, and then this orange are the ones declined or the ones refusing to turn up. We are going to provide you a link to a Google Docs sheets. This will come to all of you, and a secretary from our office will update this every week so that you can click on the tab below, and what you should say is that red pretty much goes away, because every student should now have a teacher assigned within the next week or so and start receiving their compensatory ed. The only time a red might show up is when a student's right away identified and we haven't assigned a teacher yet, but hopefully within the next couple of weeks you'll see that red pretty much go away. The green will get bigger as we get going, but many of our students have compensatory ed over several weeks, and some even over, a year and a half or 2 years, so to get to full green will take some time. But you will have a link to this so that you can click on it every week and see how we're doing in between visits. How does that sound? Yes?
I'd be interested to know the difference in the number of students whose parents turned down services.
And the ones refusing?
Versus the number of students who aren't showing up, because, that might give us some information. It seems like parents declining is one thing, but parents accepting but students not showing up, that's a little bit of a different story, and maybe we would approach those students a little bit
Absolutely.
differently.
We can absolutely separate those out, and we'll do that for you. I'll make a note with Lacey and have her do that. You bet. So then this next piece is just the protocol that we put in place to ensure that we're getting the attendance, that people are on top of it. Krista Vrombot from my office and then Lacey Christner did a bang-up job. The minute we gave them the go-ahead, they put this together. They're working with the AEA, and today Krista had already started assigning teachers after getting the names from AEA Friday, so just wanted you to see that we put a system in place to make sure we're much more efficiently handling this. And then, whoops, sorry. So Here's another system that we put in place. This is done by a couple of other people from our office, so we split up things in projects. We have about 258 students who not only no longer live in our district, but don't live within the eight. You want me to make it bigger? Is that what you were doing, TJ? I don't see the big thing. It's not letting me. Sorry. So we have about 258 students who no longer live in Davenport, but also don't live within AEA 9. So AEA 9, any student who moved out of Davenport or who has been open enrolled in another district but showed up on our list, AEA 9 took care of it, right? Because it was within their AEA. But our students who moved away, moved out of state, we have about 258 of them, 255, it's something like that. This is the process we're putting in place to try to contact them. If we don't reach them by phone, using all of the last available numbers, we will send letters, but we are going to reach out and try to see if we can find them as well. If we can't, the state and the AEA has said we can close them out, but we don't want to do that until we've done our due diligence. So just to let you know, we're working on those, and hopefully within the next month, we'll have this one resolved as well. Okay. And before I go to this, the accreditation, this was, and Director Goza, this is because of your request. At the state board meeting, they talked about the fact that in our accreditation citations, we had to send out letters to 860 parents of students and really we just had to send out the letter, discuss the fact that the prior written notice might have been inadequate, and then offer a meeting. And we only heard back from 13. Now, that alone took care of that citation, but at the State Board of Ed, they questioned, wow, that's not a big response, right? They were kind of concerned. And then at the last meeting, Director Goza had brought up he would like us to follow up on that. So this is the procedure we're putting in place, and we will probably have that resolved by the middle of January, is my guess. So that we're going to reach out to those 847 that we didn't hear from, so that you just saw that we had that procedure in place and have started on that as of today. And then the final document in here for your information is the professional development plan. It says draft up there, but it is our plan for this year. So we had to do professional development, and we're doing lots of it with our special ed teachers around the citations: predetermination, lack of individualization, disproportionality, evaluation procedures, functional behavioral assessments, behavior intervention plans. And so this just shows you the dates and the topics. What I'll say is we're now to day 5, meaning this is the topic that we're working on. As we finish out a day of PD, and we have 7 cohorts, so we've broken our special ed teachers into 7 groups. When we get to that 7th cohort, after we finish it up, we adjust sort of what the next one's going to look like based on sort of feedback, and if we see there are some areas we still need to keep working on. But this in general is what we're focusing on. So we just wanted you to have that. And you can see why in the report that Amy Williamson provides to the State Board of Ed that the professional development is in process, because our last date is May 23rd. So we won't be done with this citation until May 23rd. And that doesn't mean we won't need to do more in the future. This is just to get us through, this is to address this. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Whoops, wrong way. January 6th, or the January 18th, or what do you want?
No, so a day that already happened here.
Okay.
Okay, day 3, October 22nd.
Yes.
This day, we talk about disproportionality, culture and climate. We had some dynamic speakers come into our district to begin to talk about mindset.
Yes.
Shiraki Hawley and Anthony Muhammad. Anthony Muhammad was that day, and
Yep.
I believe was that the day we had Shiraki. That was the time period we had Shiraki Hawley in, and he's working with our high schools and some pilot schools to begin to talk about culturally, linguistically responsive pedagogy inside of our buildings. And Anthony Muhammad, who works for Solution Tree, thank you, Rob, works for Solution Tree, but also was a principal in Flint, Michigan, that helped turn a school around in a very politically charged climate. And so they're dynamic people that are helping us begin that really difficult conversation around mindset and shifting our thought process and disproportionality and CLRP. So I just wanted to highlight that piece there, because that's something that we know is going to take a long time, but we're committed to addressing it.
Yes.
How are you tracking attendance at all of these training sessions? And how will we do that going forward to make sure that all staff that are required to be there are attending?
Good question. We actually have attendance sheets, and our secretaries are here, so we have a list of who's assigned to each cohort, and then they have to sign in not only when they come in the morning, but they leave for lunch and they come back and they have to sign in again. Should somebody not attend, then we reach out and contact them to find out why, because they're mandatory, and then they have to make up the session at one of the later cohorts. If it happens at cohort 7, then we're going to have to go out and meet with that person personally or set up some sort of makeup session for them. If they meet, like sometimes people miss a portion, they might miss an hour because they had an appointment or something of that sort, they have to make up that hour. They have to come and make up the hour. We're really working hard at making sure everybody is there. And AEA is holding their people just as accountable as we are. It's been a real collaboration. Any?
You're looking kind of for feedback on all of this, right?
Well, a lot of this was informational for you so that you could see the processes we have in place as a response to some of the concerns. There was some question about the PD, so we wanted to make sure you saw that. You're welcome to attend any session. If you want to, let us know and we'll tell you where they're located, because we kind of move around depending on where there was space that day. Then, but the one for sure that we want feedback on was the, not that one, this one. Wanted to make sure this was a format that you felt was a good way to present the data updates, along with the pie graph, knowing that you'll have a link to it and can kind of follow up on how we're doing with the compensatory ed, because we had fallen behind there.
Any discussion, comments for Susan? Director DeSalvo.
I do like the format, and I agree with Director Hayes that I would like to see this at least every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Having the link at our own is very good, but I would still like you to show it to us.
Absolutely.
Just to make sure that some of us may not always be able to jump online as frequently, so that would be very helpful. The updates for the number of students is obviously very important to all of us, so I like the format, so thank you.
Anything else? Director Gosa.
I agree too. I do like this format. It was way more informative. This is kind of what I was going for the past couple years on wanting something like this. So I do appreciate you guys getting this put together and then having that linked so we can keep track of that pie chart. And I do like the overall format and everything. So I mean, I'm not trying to say nothing here, but then we know you're doing your job. So, and things are getting done. I do appreciate it.
Anything else? Director Beck.
I also think this is a good format, and the consistency is nice. You can see the numbers tick up. I know you said hopefully that this is also an update on what's going on. So can I ask a question about that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So under the table, the next one over, yep, that one.
This one?
Yep, when you go to Appendix B, the line for Appendix B, when we've gone from 56% completed to 61% completed, I guess that was sort of the one that didn't seem to move as much as I would have liked to see. Are we still going to be able to finish that by the time we need to?
As it stands right now, so all of these that we have to complete from this point on involve a reeval, which take a little bit more time, but it's not like they do one reeval at a time. They're doing many at the same time because you do them over a period of days, especially the behavior ones, which is why the AEA provided the in-process, the 262 more, because those are probably going to close out pretty soon. When Kim Hoffman from the AEA, Dr. Schmitz, Sandy, and I meet, we all feel pretty confident that we're going to get there by April 23rd. We have some heavy lifting to do, but we still believe we're going to get the individual citations done. But those are only one piece of our accreditation. The disproportionality is a bigger one, and then through the PD, the systemic piece also behind the predetermination and lack of individualization, we have to deal with that ongoing.
Anything else? I got to say thank you, of course, for everything you guys have done. And just a couple of things that I've been pondering while you were presenting. One was, I think that the whole board is especially sensitive to Director Mayfield not being able to attend a lot of our meetings. And I was thinking about the difficulty in trying to understand this without an explanation like you've given. I think it would be hard, because you showed, well, here's what the state did, here's what we did, here's the information that we're going to provide. And so I'm just asking that perhaps you and Mary work together, figure out a way to help make sure that he's not only getting the information, but understanding it somehow. I don't know how to do that right now, but. And then the other part, I was thinking about the rest of the district. You've prepared this mostly for our use, and I was just wondering how widespread then is the information, say to the special ed department, to other departments, to administration. I have no idea. Sometimes, like data walls, this isn't exactly a data wall, but it might be used in that manner.
I mean, we could definitely share it. Yep. So I attend principals meetings, so we can share this with them to keep them updated. The special ed staff, we keep updated as we do our professional development. Not that we haven't shown them this yet because we just created it for you, but we can share this with them. That's not a problem at all. But we're open to doing whatever we need to do. Yeah.
If you're going to be giving us a table like this every 2 weeks, couldn't we just put that on the website in the special ed update section and make it public?
I'm fine with that. Can we do that? Okay. We can do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else? Okay, great. Thanks a lot. Okay, we'll move on to, we have one more discussion item, which is policies. Director Beck, you want to lead that discussion?
Yes, and I'm actually going to ask Mr. Scott to step in here. So we are revisiting the policy that came up several weeks ago before I left for maternity leave on fees associated with curricular and extracurricular activities. And so we have had a chance to hear from the lawyer and to discuss sort of what our policy is. And since Mr. Scott is heading this up, I'm going to ask him to explain what is here.
All righty then. What we've talked about in the previous meetings was the responsibility we have as a district to provide the resources. If we endorse an activity, no different than, I used the example last time about 7th grade volleyball. If we have a 7th grade volleyball team and they're traveling, we should be paying for the transportation. If we have a show choir group, if we have a marching band, what we come around is what is going to be the expectation for that event, or I should say team or club. We need to be able to provide the opportunities for them. So if we determine that there will be 4 show choir events, then we need to bus the students to those 4 show choir events. If we decide there was 2, if we decide there was 6, that's just one example of many in our district of opportunities. We need to make sure that the fees do not keep students from participating, or even the thought that there is a fee out there associated with trying out for. So we hear a lot of 8th graders, we see a lot of transition from our 8th grade to our 9th grade, our high schools, of kids not coming out for dance teams and cheerleading teams, but because they think there is a fee out there. And, well, I shouldn't say think, there was a fee out there associated with those that was keeping our students from participating. If we found out about it, there was resources and things that sometimes happen to allow a student, but that consistency now is cleared amongst us. It is allowing to make sure all of our students. Now, we could determine as a district that we're not going to have 7th grade volleyball, and so then we wouldn't have that cost as a district. Just like we could determine that we're not going to have show choir, and then we wouldn't have that expense. But if we have that expense and we endorse as an activity and have coaches, then we need to provide the opportunities for all students.
Thank you for that. And then just to clarify, one of the things we had discussed was the role of booster clubs in a lot of these events, because they raise a lot of money for some of our groups, show choir, for example. Booster clubs are still allowed to operate. Could you explain sort of?
Yeah,
for
a good
everyone else?
example for that would be I'm going to use marching band. If marching bands are given 3 bus trips to 3 events, we will establish where that is going to be, whether it's going to be within 110 miles. They can go to 3 events in 110 miles. Now, if they want to go to the event in Minneapolis, then the booster clubs can raise the money so that they can go on to this special trip. No different than our basketball team. If our basketball team was picked to play in one of these shootouts in the Chicago area, that would be a booster club, could pick up the difference so they're not taking a school bus, they're taking a charter bus. It's the extras. It should be the extras. It shouldn't be what maintains the program and allows it to succeed and be successful. It's the extras. They could have one outfit for whatever we determine for a show choir, let's say a cheerleading outfit, but it's the extras that above that is what the booster club could still raise funds for and provide for our students.
And it's my understanding that the booster club cannot require each individual.
Yeah, so they're fundraising for a team. There's no record of, Rob Scott or Bill Shaden, whether we have paid or even participated in whether we went to the car wash or did anything. It's just we're raising as an event to establish money for the future. Yep.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I will.
Can I add
open
one
up-
thing to that? So,
Oh, yeah.
I know you didn't ask, but the special trips are, so a trip outside of the curriculum or outside of the event, let's say a spring break trip, that is considered not part of the class, not part of the connection. That can be something that someone can be, would be required to pay for to be able to go on that. If it's not associated with what we call the district standard, it's an extra. Now, I do believe our booster clubs will help for that a lot. I'm speaking for all of the 20 or whatever groups that I'm talking about, but I believe there'd be a lot of help to make sure that no kid missed out on that. But that would be something that we could keep a line item on to say Rob Scott was in charge of $750 or $250, whatever the cost would be.
So I will open it up to discussion. Director DeSalvo.
How will we fund these events or buses or uniforms, or how will this be funded? How will this be funded? The buses, the uniforms, those things, how will we fund these things? I'm more familiar with athletics. I know that we have gate fees, and that helps to cover the cost of, some of the cost of equipment and uniforms and transportation. And so we don't have that now for band or dance or music. So how will we do that?
That will be a district standard that I am currently meeting with different groups, but those, I don't want to call it district standard, but there are things, non-negotiables, transportation, registration fees we are going to pay for. That is going to come out of our general budget. So we are going to have to allocate for additional funds if we want to keep the current programming that we have in all of our groups, whether it is having cheerleading, whether it's having the show choir, whether it's having the marching band. There is a standard that we will have to start funding from the general fund.
Anyone else? Esme.
How would you determine the amount of money that each extracurricular activity would get?
So I'm currently meeting with all 3 schools. If there are, I'll use 3 dance coaches. There's 3, one from each school. We're meeting together. We are looking at what the current practice has been, but we're also looking at other 4A schools similar size to us, and what would be, if you had a program, what would that look like? And again, we're not looking at a moped, and we're not looking at, you know, a really expensive vehicle. We're looking at somewhere in the middle and trying to come up with what that is. Now, we still may not be able to be what our standard is, but that's just kind of our target right now, and then it may have to be adjusted down or depending on what the general budget can afford. But we're having very valuable meetings with each groups.
Director Potts.
Did I hear you correct that said that there'll no longer be student accounts, where they raise money for their accounts?
Yeah, currently that should already exist, and to my knowledge, that information has already been shared with them. Parents can pledge, just like you could pledge for the John Deere Classic, you know, the Birdies for Charity. If you don't pay your pledge, it doesn't have any impact on you, whether you participate or not. That's raised by booster clubs. Teachers are not to be associated with collecting of fees for students, and so for any number of events.
But I'm talking about that, like traditionally, bands, they sold fruit, and a certain percentage of what they sold went to the overall band, but a certain percent was then earmarked for what they had hustled and shown the initiative and the work ethic to go do and raise that money, so they could then participate or reduce the cost to their parents for them going on a trip or something.
Yeah, so for the normal school year activities, there is no participation fee, no cost to them at all. They walk into the show choir, I'll use show choir again, and they're participating in all the events for show choir. There's no money at all. If they're taking an additional trip outside of that spring break trip, that summer trip, that is something that we could keep a fee where they could be raising money for that student. But during the year, they walk right in and they're participating just like they would on the 9th grade basketball team. They're on the team, they make the team, they come to practice, they get a practice jersey, they get a uniform, they get bused to the games, no cost at all to them. I keep using the sports reference because that's about as close as I can come to as far as when I keep thinking of the event. Well, we have the team. There should be no cost to the kid. They shouldn't be thinking that he has to pay $5 or anything. He just walks in and he participates.
Does that answer your question?
I don't say I like it.
Well, I didn't ask if you liked it. Director Gosa, did you have a question?
Yes. I guess I have a question, and I brought this up a lot, like our feeder programs. Does some of the funds from that go into our programs that they feed into? Because I'll give you an example. We did a 7th and 8th grade football team. They would not let us rent the equipment from the district, which would have gave money. We had to go out and fundraise for that and buy that, as well as new jerseys and stuff. So if we would all work together, that would help that pool of money out. I guess I just didn't understand why there was so much, I don't even know how I want to say that the right way, but there was so much resistance from the district to let us rent that equipment. And that would, you know what I'm saying? I mean, my daughters do the pre-cheerleading thing. They go take, you know, I don't even remember what we pay for that, and then they get their shirts and stuff like that. But all these different things we could be doing to where the younger kids want to do that because that's a cool thing to do. That's what they want to do when they get to high school. It could be helping out some of the older kids' programs and when they get to that level, I guess I'll say.
Yeah, with the football equipment, I know the insurance has a lot to do with it, the coverage of that. Because when we made the calls on that, I think that was probably a year and a half ago, or when we were checking into that. So I don't know that. I don't have that in front of me to know what the insurance reasons were around the football equipment. I don't have a lot to do with it. We do it right now with our gyms, though. We allow our feeder programs to have gyms at no cost, and they're running. We're not charging them the rental for that. So that's one opportunity that we're trying to make it. And when they run these camps, I don't believe that we're charging the coaches for when they're running the camps if they're running it with feeder teams.
Right. Well, I'm saying if that's a way to get revenue from that. I know we've paid for some of the different activities that the kids have went, like camps and stuff like
That's
that.
interesting.
So.
Yeah, I understand your question now. Yeah, they use that to help support their team. That's one of their fundraisers. It'd be like doing the car wash. Instead, they're hosting a clinic, a cheer clinic, or something like that, or a practice or a camp where they're raising money for their team. Now, those monies are kept in their club account, and like for example, that would pay for a summer basketball league. I think something like that.
So they're still able to do that stuff with.
They're still able to raise money. That's
Okay.
because that's outside the season. That's not considered like the basketball team doing something in the summer. They still can have their fundraisers for those activities.
Okay.
If I might sort of interject, my understanding here is that the booster clubs can still raise money, but they can't go to an individual student and say, if you want to participate in this trip, which is not one that the district is funding, you have to pay this amount. And, well, they can do that if it's one that's not associated with what the school is funding. If the school is funding this competition, we go to this, we're paying for transportation for this competition because we've established it as a standard, right? The booster club can't say, in order to go to that competition, you have to have X costume, and so you have to pay for that extra costume to go on this trip, right? But if the booster club would like everybody to have that extra costume, or if the show choir, I keep using show, everybody's using show choir, to have that extra costume, the booster club could raise money as a group, but the one kid who didn't hustle and sell enough fruit can't be told he can't go on that trip because he didn't sell enough fruit.
Right, and so one more I'll use, and I'm stretching out the meeting here, but if we determined that a school wanted to have a chess club that was going to compete on the state level, well, they still could have a club and kids could pay to do that, but it wasn't one of the district standards, like we're not endorsing that. So we still could have many of other activities. It's just when we come to embrace something as one of ours, we have to start paying for it. And years ago, we had a rugby team that wasn't a Davenport rugby team, but we had kids participating in it. They were able to pay the way it wasn't it. But once we endorse it or embrace it, we have to establish the funds for that.
Anyone else?
Unless anybody who's a chess player that would want to get that chess thing going. So,
Claudia.
Some of the regulations related to the booster groups relate to their nonprofit status and IRS regulations. And we try to keep an arm's length distance of that. But if a booster group, whether it's for athletics or music or whatever, if they are raising the funds so that the students in that group can do something extra, something beyond what we would consider, a normal event that the district is sponsoring and supporting, the boosters can raise money for that. What they can get in trouble from the IRS about is designating accounts to individuals. That negates their nonprofit status. So that's just some more details of why a booster group can't, to stay in compliance with IRS regulations and being a nonprofit, they can't designate that student A raised enough, student B raised enough, but students C, D, and E didn't. They have to raise money for the entire group.
Anyone else? Okay, so this was just for discussion. We will finish it up. And I do believe we are going to work on finishing that last line there where it says fee waivers and reduction procedures. That is the federal fee waiver forms. We just have to figure out where those are and put that in there. So that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Director Beck. Are there any administrative reports? Are there any administrative reports?
There are none at this time.
All right, thank you. Are there any board requests? I haven't seen any. Okay, if not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.